I've heard you mention on a number of occasions that you consider yourself a huge Jerry Lawler mark. And I believe you've also said that in your opinion, Lawler is the greatest of all time. Most people of your generation, especially those who worked in wrestling, consider Ric Flair to be the greatest of all time. What is it about Lawler's gimmick and in-ring work that makes you place Lawler at the top of the pile, especially ahead of Flair?
Well, I think he's overstated the case. I've said many times that I'm a big fan of Lawler's, and Lawler is one of the greatest of all time. I think at certain things he is the greatest of all time, but I don't remember ever saying he was the greatest of all time. So there's stages of this. And once again, you can't, Flair did so many things so much better than Lawler. Lawler did so many things so much better than Flair, and Terry Funk did things completely unorthodox and was better at some things than both of them. You can't quantify the greatest. You can talk about people that were great or some one attribute they had that you think might have been better. Having said that, Lawler was he was an artist at what he did. When he's a contradiction. He never worked out in a gym, had no real mainstream athletic background, yet he would have these 30-minute extravaganzas in the Mid-South Coliseum and never blow up. One of the reasons he's so calm about everything, Nick Bockwinkel called him one of the best ring generals he'd ever been in the ring with. But at the same time, he was never panic and frantic, but he could convey every emotion. His body language was perfect, whether he was angry or mocking someone or happy or stunned or in pain, whatever, you could see it. You didn't even have to look at his face. He was an artist, so his hand-eye coordination was perfect. Couldn't wrestle his way out of a wet paper bag if you want to talk about legitimate wrestling, but he could stage a climactic movie fight scene in one take in a theater in the round in front of 10,000 people. Basically, I'm a fan of his because not only were his interviews more believable than almost anybody else's, and he knew the ways to manipulate people's emotions verbally, but then his performance in the ring, despite all evidence to the contrary that this guy shouldn't be tough, convinced hundreds of thousands of people on an annual basis in a number of cities to go see him live because he was the baddest man on the planet. And his matches in the live theater and around were the most exciting of the night, and usually some of the most exciting you would see.
It's the interviews that really, to me, Lawler may be the greatest, in my eyes, interview in the history of wrestling because he could do that hot promo as a heel or a babyface, either get you to love him or hate him, but get you to come Monday night. But it was the other promos, the conversational tones he was able to have and casually explain something so that it made perfect sense and you understood what was going on and you understood why he felt the way he did, and then he could turn it on as soon as he needed to.
Exactly. It's people talk about storytelling. He wasn't telling a prepared story. He was telling a story off the top of his head because he had the gist of what he wanted to say. There was never anything written down. There was never any script. He would remember bits of things. He had a one-liner joke book that he used, probably still has to this day. Don't we all? But as far as the promos, they were not in any way rehearsed or scripted that you could, that there was any evidence of. It always seemed genuine.